Here's principle 4. When a major or minor triad is in first inversion, double the soprano. There is an exception to that. When a diminished triad is in first inversion, double the bass. So let's put our theory into practice. Watch below. What we'll do now is practice adding in the alto and tenor voices, given the soprano and bass notes and a figured bass. So, if you see sixes, chances are we are in first inversion, which means that this first one right here is not going to be the root of this triad. That will be the third. So, count up 6 from this E, and we have to include a C in the triad. We already have a G, and we already have an E. Arrange those into superimposed thirds to find out your triad. Your triad is C-E-G. It's a C major triad, according to the figured bass, in first inversion. When we're in first inversion, we double the soprano. So now we can begin to plug things in. We have the third. The soprano is a G, let's put a G in the tenor and double the soprano and supply the missing chord tone. What's the missing chord tone? The C. Like so. We probably could also do this if we wanted to. Put my G and my E in my bass and my soprano. And do that. That also works. Okay, let's look at the second chord. So we have a C in the bass and an A in the soprano. We're in first inversion because we have a 6 underneath, which means go up 6 from the C, and that's an A. That's already the soprano part. Now we have to figure out the triad. So we know that the C is the third, so then the A must be the root, and the E must be the fifth. So we'll need to supply an E and another A to double the soprano. A, E. Or we could probably do this. So long as we're doubling the soprano and also adhering to all the part writing rules of spacing. In the next one, our bass note is a D. We have a flat 6. We're in first inversion. Go up from a D, 6. That's going to be a B, but it's flat because of the flat 6. We have a D, and we have an F. Rearrange those into superimposed thirds, and we're looking at a B flat, D, F major triad in inversion. We'll need to double the soprano and supply the missing chord tone in the tenor. Don't forget to include your flat sign because of the figured bass. In the last example, we have an E in the bass. We have a C sharp in the soprano. So we have a /6. That's already the soprano note, C sharp. We have a sharp alone by itself. That implies that the third is raised up one semitone above the lowest note. What's the lowest note in E? So go up a third and we'll have to include a G sharp. We already have a C sharp and we have an E. Rearrange those to form the triad. The C sharp is our root, the E is our third, and the G sharp is our fifth. So this is a C sharp minor triad according to the figured bass in first inversion. Therefore, we'll need to double the C sharp because the C sharp is in the soprano with another voice. Let's put it here in the tenor and see what happens. Stem up, sharp sign. So that's a C sharp. And what's the missing chord tone? The G, which the altos will need to sing. Actually, it's a G sharp, so let's do that. We have to follow the figured bass. And there is our minor triad in first inversion. We've doubled the soprano in all cases here. That's what you want to remember to do when you're dealing with major or minor triads in first inversion. Double the soprano. Okay, we're moving on to diminished triads. Diminished triads should exist in first and sometimes second inversion, but never in root position. Very important. When you have a diminished triad in first inversion, we want to double the bass, which is also the third of the chord since it's in first inversion. So we have to keep that in mind. So let's look at our examples up here. We notice that we have 6 and a flat as a figured bass. So this 6 represents that we are in first inversion, and that the flat represents that we need to lower one semitone the note that's a third above the bass. So what's the bass note? The bass is an F. A third above the F would be an A flat, which is why we have the flat sign here. So we have an F, A flat. We're in first inversion, which means the F is the third. So we have the third and we have the fifth. The root must be a D. How did we get the D? Well, we took the 6 in the figured bass, and up from the lowest note, we went up from F, G, A, B, C, D. And that's 6 tones, and that note D is located in the soprano voice. We now know that this is a diminished triad in first inversion. What we have to remember with diminished triads in first inversion is to double the bass, or the third. So that's why the tenor is joining the bass and singing the F. Let's look at the second one. The second one, we have a chord that's going to be in first inversion as a result of the 6. Take a look at the bass, that's the lowest note. That's going to be the third of this triad. We can count up 6 from this D and we'll land on a B. So far the pitches we know are B and D. The other one that we have to find is going to all depend on you remembering if it's first inversion or not. So D is first inversion, which means this must be the third, and the B must be the root. Therefore, the F that's written is our fifth. So this is a B diminished triad, okay, in first inversion. So we want to double the bass, or the third in first inversion. So here, we don't want to double the fifth. What we want to do is slide this F down and have it double the bass. And have your other voices supply the other tones to make up the triad. In this next example, we have a sharp 6 in the figured bass. That's an indicator that this is a chord that's in first inversion, which means this bass note, the lowest note, is going to be the third. So we know that E is the third. We need to find the fifth and the root of this triad. The sharp 6 indicates that we need to raise the note that is a sixth above the lowest note. The lowest note is an E. If we travel up 6, we land on a C, but it's a C sharp because of the slash. So that indicates that we have a C sharp and an E. We know the E is the third, so the C sharp must in fact be the root. Therefore, the fifth is a G. This now makes up a C sharp diminished triad. I'll need to double the bass, which is the third. So I'll take this and I could move this down right there so the tenors can sing the E, which is doubling the third in a diminished triad. This is still okay, it's less than an octave. And then I have the soprano covering the root, the C sharp. The alto covering the root, the C sharp. A little high for altos, but it works. And then I have the G covered by the soprano, the fifth. And so that's what we have to remember when we write diminished triads, is when we have one, it should be written in first inversion, and we should double the bass or the third of the chord. Okay, so now we're going to practice adding alto and tenor voices in. This is the first time we're doing this, so let's take out a piece of staff paper, please. Make a grand staff, treble and bass clef, and copy the notes and the accidentals and the figured bass that you see. I'm going to give you approximately 5.5 minutes to complete these 3 chords for SATB voices, following the figured bass symbols. In the 3rd chord, this is something new. We have an X next to the 6 in the figured bass. So if you're thinking what I'm thinking, that means you are going to not raise the 6th above the lowest note 1 semitone, but in fact 2 semitones. So I believe that all of these will be either diminished triads in inversion or just first inversion triads that are not diminished. So it's up to you, and the figured bass will give you the answers, and hopefully you remember the rules of the doubling according to whatever triad in inversion it is. So your 5.5 minutes begins now. Good luck. Okay, so AP, while you were hard at work, so was I. Let's check our answers. So hopefully you realize that all of these chords are diminished triads in first inversion. The 6 in the figured bass gave it away, and then what you needed to do was try to find the root third and the fifth. So for the first one, we had A sharp as the root, C sharp as the third because it's in the bass, and then an E. And as you can see, the soprano note given is a very low C sharp 4. So we had to be very constricted as far as our writing goes. But notice that this is acceptable because that is within the range of an octave. So I have the tenor singing the E, and I have the alto singing the A sharp. In this case, in this diminished triad, the soprano note was given to us, which is doubled by the bass. So in diminished triads, remember in first inversion diminished triads, we want to double the bass or the third, which we have in the first example. In the second example, we have a 6 and a flat. So this diminished triad should be from root third to fifth, C, A, C, E flat, with the C in the bass. Then we needed to remember that we should observe our flat alone means to lower one semitone, the third note above the lowest note, in this case E flat. Notice I have doubled the bass or the third with the tenor voice singing it. In the last example, we have a double sharp 6 and then a sharp by itself. The diminished triad here is G double sharp as root, B sharp as the third, and D sharp as the fifth, making it a diminished triad. We need to make sure to double the bass, since we now know it's a diminished triad, in which case I have done in the alto voice. Don't forget, I'm sorry, not in the alto voice, in the tenor voice right there. And we can't forget about going up 6 tones from the lowest note, B, up to a G, and then making that a G double sharp for our diminished triad. Here in parentheses, I've indicated what some of you might have done. It simply doesn't work because the tenor is just simply too high to sing. It's far out of their range. So really there's one way to do all these, and hopefully you did well on it. We'll practice more, and the more we practice, the less amount of time it will take you to do stuff like this. AP, please take a moment to copy this down. You'll notice that all other part writing rules are the same in effect when you have first inversion triads. Let's copy this down.